deep beneath the solid granite of the Rocky Mountains, where the cold Colorado air meets the massive stone peaks, there lies a subterranean nightmare of the Cold War. A city buried 2,000 feet under solid rock. It is known to the military as the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, the ultimate underground fortress built to survive a direct nuclear strike. The world views this place as a relic of 20th century paranoia. A steel citadel designed to endure an apocalyptic end, built to withstand a 30-megaton nuclear blast, and keep the command heart of the Western world beating, even if the surface turns to ash. But that is only the official story told to the public. The dark reality inside this hollowed-out mountain is far more terrifying. In the 21st century, the threats have drastically evolved. The fortress is no longer just hiding from intercontinental ballistic missiles. It is fighting an invisible warfare against electromagnetic pulses, cyber strikes, and space-based weapons. A single breach in its cyber defense could blind the entire nuclear retaliatory grid of the United States, and turn this multi-billion-dollar mountain into a high-tech concrete tomb. Welcome back to Virexia. Episode 7. Cheyenne Mountain Complex. The underground fortress built to survive a direct nuclear strike. To understand the sheer madness of this engineering feat, we must travel back to the late 1950s. The Soviet Union had just launched Sputnik, proving they possessed the rocket power to strike any American city. The Pentagon realized its air defense centers on the surface were completely vulnerable to a surprise nuclear strike. They needed an indestructible bunker, a command post that could survive the initial blast and strike back with absolute fury. They looked at the map and chose Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, because the mountain is made of exceptionally dense, unyielding granite. In 1961, the massive excavation began. Miners used over 1 million pounds of dynamite to blast through the ancient rock. They removed nearly 700,000 tons of granite, creating a vast network of interlocking chambers. Inside this hollowed-out cavern, engineers did something completely unprecedented. Instead of building directly onto the stone floor, they constructed 15 separate 3-story buildings. And they placed these massive steel structures on top of a giant system of heavy springs. Over 1,000 giant steel springs, each weighing 1,000 pounds. These springs allow the entire underground city to shift and bounce up to 12 inches in any direction. If a Soviet nuclear warhead detonated directly on top of the mountain peak, the massive shockwaves would pass through the granite. The buildings would shake, but they would not collapse. It was a masterclass in survivability, a fortress designed to withstand the impossible. But the true engineering marvel lies at the entrance of the complex. To seal this underground city from the apocalyptic outside world, engineers installed 2 massive blast doors. Each door is over 3 feet thick, weighs 25 tons, and is made of solid reinforced steel. They are engineered to seal completely airtight within 90 seconds, creating an absolute barrier against radioactive fallout, biological weapons, and chemical gases. The doors are shaped like massive vault entries, interlocking perfectly with the solid granite walls. Behind these doors, the complex operates on a completely independent life support system. It features its own subterranean reservoirs, holding millions of gallons of pristine water carved into the rock. It possesses massive industrial diesel generators, capable of powering a small city for months without oxygen from the surface. The air entering the complex is filtered through an endless maze of advanced chemical and radiological scrubbers. The soldiers inside could sit comfortably in the dark, watching the destruction of the outer world on their screens. For decades, this was the nerve center of NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Every satellite orbit, every radar sweep, and every nuclear missile silo on Earth was tracked from these underground screens. It was the ultimate shield, ensuring that even if America was wiped out, the brain of the military would survive to deliver a retaliatory strike. But when the Cold War ended in 1991, the fortress faced a different kind of existential threat. The massive budget required to keep the mountain fully operational became hard to justify to the government. In 2006, the military decided to place Cheyenne Mountain into a state of warm standby. They moved the primary operations of NORAD to the nearby and much cheaper Peterson Air Force Base. The fortress inside the mountain was mostly abandoned, left with a skeleton crew to keep the lights on. The world believed the old mountain had finally retired, a museum of a bygone era of atomic fear. But history has a dark way of repeating itself. By the mid-2010s, the geopolitical landscape began to rapidly fracture. Russia began deploying hypersonic missiles capable of bypassing traditional radar systems in minutes. China began testing advanced anti-satellite weapons designed to blind the American military grid from space. And North Korea developed intercontinental missiles that could reach the American mainland. But the most terrifying threat was the weaponization of the electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. A high-altitude nuclear detonation, designed not to destroy buildings, but to completely fry all electrical grids across a continent. If an EMP struck the United States, the surface military bases at Peterson Air Force Base would go instantly dark. Their computers would melt, their communications would fail, and the military would be completely blinded. The Pentagon realized they had made a catastrophic mistake. In 2015, a silent shift occurred. The military quietly moved the primary command systems of NORAD back inside the granite walls of Cheyenne Mountain. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade the ancient facility for the modern era of cyber warfare. Why? Because Cheyenne Mountain is the ultimate natural Faraday cage. The 2,000 feet of dense granite rock completely blocks out all electromagnetic radiation. An EMP blast on the surface that would plunge the entire North American continent into the Dark Ages would not cause a single flicker inside the mountain. The steel buildings, suspended on their giant springs, are completely shielded from the modern electronic weapons. But this return to the mountain has created a new and highly stressful reality for the personnel inside. The modern fortress is no longer just tracking incoming bombers. It is the central hub for the United States Space Command. Every single piece of space debris, every rogue military satellite, and every cyber attack on satellite infrastructure is monitored from these dark rooms. The pressure inside the granite chambers is immense. Soldiers spend 12-hour shifts deep underground, never seeing the sun, breathing processed air. They are acutely aware that if the blast doors ever close for real, everyone they love on the surface is already dead. Let us step inside this active subterranean fortress to experience its modern reality. To enter, you must pass through a heavily armed checkpoint at the base of the valley. A massive concrete tunnel cuts directly into the side of the mountain, sloping downward into the absolute dark. The air inside the tunnel feels heavy, cold, and smells of diesel fuel and old rock. As you walk deeper, the massive 25-ton steel blast doors loom ahead, glowing under harsh yellow security lights. They look less like military gear, and more like an ancient portal to an underground underworld. Inside the main cavern, the scale of the facility is staggering. The 15 steel buildings do not look like military bunkers. They look like plain, windowless office blocks, painted in dull olive drab. But when you look closely at the base of these buildings, you see the giant, rusted steel springs holding the entire structure off the ground. The floors beneath your feet vibrate slightly from the massive air filtration systems humming deep in the rock. Inside the main command floor, known as the Combat Operations Center, the atmosphere is tensely quiet. Rows of computer terminals are manned by operators in pristine uniforms, their faces illuminated by the glow of massive display screens. These screens display real-time tracking data of every object orbiting the Earth. Red lines indicate potential threats, blue lines indicate allied assets. The data is constantly updating, a digital map of a highly fragile world. One terminal is dedicated solely to tracking foreign missile launches, its sensor network connected to satellites hovering thousands of miles above. The silence in the room is heavy, broken only by the low hum of electronic cooling fans. Everyone knows that a single red flash on the screen means the end of the world. But the modern Cheyenne Mountain Complex is facing a structural crisis that no one wants to talk about. The mountain itself is starting to fight back against the human intruders. Granite is incredibly strong, but it is not entirely static. Over 60 years, the constant weight of the mountain, combined with tectonic shifts, has caused the rock caverns to slowly deform. Microscopic cracks are spreading through the granite arches, dropping small stone fragments onto the steel roofs below. The military has to constantly employ specialized structural engineers who inject advanced polymers into the rock and install massive steel rock bolts to keep the cavern stable. Over L-shaped steel bolts, some 30 feet long, are driven deep into the mountain ceiling to prevent a catastrophic cave-in. Furthermore, the underground water reservoirs, which were meant to guarantee survival, are becoming a hazard. Water is slowly seeping through the granite fissures, carrying corrosive minerals that attack the steel springs supporting the buildings. If those springs rust out, the shock absorption system fails, and the fortress loses its ability to survive a nuclear blast. The maintenance of this underground city is an endless, multi-million-dollar battle against geology. It proves that even when you hide inside a mountain, nature is always trying to reclaim its territory. The financial cost of maintaining this atomic relic has sparked intense debate within the Pentagon. Many modern military strategists argue that the concept of a centralized underground bunker is completely obsolete in the era of decentralized warfare. They believe that instead of hiding all your command infrastructure inside one single mountain, the military should distribute its command centers across a cloud-based network. Using mobile command trailers, advanced airborne command posts, and decentralized cyber grids. If an enemy knows exactly where your mountain is, they can simply target it with multiple, high-yield nuclear weapons. Modern nuclear warheads are so precise that they can strike the exact same spot repeatedly. A tactic known as bunker busting, where successive nuclear detonations dig deeper and deeper into the rock until the fortress is crushed by its own mountain. Yet, the defenders of Cheyenne Mountain argue that a physical, UN-hackable fortress is irreplaceable. In a total cyber war, where the cloud network is corrupted and communications are severed, the physical wire lines inside the mountain will be the only things left standing. It is the ultimate insurance policy, a physical guarantee that the line of military succession cannot be broken. The mountain is not meant to win a war. It is meant to ensure that the enemy cannot win either. But there is a darker, psychological aspect to life inside this granite fortress. The personnel who work inside Cheyenne Mountain are trained to operate under the absolute assumption of isolation. During high-tension geopolitical standoffs, the blast doors are sealed, a procedure known as locking down the mountain. When those doors lock, the air inside becomes a closed loop. The outside world ceases to exist, except as digital data on the screens. Psychologists have studied the intense stress experienced by the soldiers during these lockdowns. The feeling of being buried under millions of tons of solid rock, combined with the knowledge that the surface may be experiencing a nuclear holocaust, creates a unique psychological weight. There is no escape, no looking out a window, no calling your family. You are trapped inside a steel box with 100 other people, completely isolated in the dark. The military employs strict psychological screening for anyone assigned to the mountain. They look for signs of claustrophobia, anxiety, and emotional instability. Because if an operator cracks under pressure and inputs the wrong data into the nuclear retaliatory grid, the consequences are absolute. The fortress requires humans to act like machines, cold, precise, and completely disconnected from their emotions. The geopolitical tension surrounding the mountain is reaching a modern boiling point. Foreign intelligence agencies, specifically the Russian GRU and the Chinese Ministry of State Security, are constantly monitoring the mountain from space. They track the entry and exit of military personnel, the delivery of supplies, and the electromagnetic signatures leaking from the tunnel entrance.
Condition 3-0.
They know that if the activity inside the mountain suddenly spikes, it is a clear indicator that the United States is preparing for a major conflict. In response, the American military has installed advanced security measures around the perimeter. Thermal imaging cameras, motion sensors hidden in the surrounding pine forests, and automated drone defense systems. The surrounding valley is a heavily restricted zone, where unauthorized entry can result in lethal force. The peaceful Colorado landscape is a facade, masking a hyper-alert defense perimeter. The mountain has become a silent gauge for the state of global peace. When the world is safe, the mountain is quiet. When the world fractures, the mountain comes alive with frantic energy. It is a barometer for the end of days. As you look at the iconic concrete entrance structure today, jutting out of the green pine trees like a brutalist monument, you realize that this mountain is a mirror of human civilization. We have created weapons so incredibly powerful that we are forced to hollow out the earth just to hide from our own inventions. We have spent billions of dollars to build a sanctuary for computers and generals, while leaving the rest of humanity unprotected on the surface. Cheyenne Mountain is not a symbol of strength. It is a monument to our ultimate failure to find peace. A fortress born of fear, maintained by tension, and waiting for a day that we hope will never come. If the final warning ever flashes on those underground monitors, the massive steel doors will seal for the last time. The springs will absorb the shock of a dying world. And the generals in the dark will inherit a planet of ash. Thank you for watching episode 7 of Virexia. If you want to continue exploring the hidden, dangerous infrastructures that rule our world, make sure to hit the subscribe button and drop your thoughts below. Until next time, stay curious, look far beneath the surface, and question everything.